Hello, this is my first installment of the assembly of the Time 4 machine Heavenly Hercules airplane metal model kit. And I've gotten started and I've made a few notes in the instructions that I noticed you might want to be aware of. For one thing, when you get these parts off, I mentioned in the first video, you probably need a file. So you'll see that in the openings that there's like little bitty tabs on the parts, probably from the manufacturing process. So I've highlighted those and put a little file icon. I think it'd be nice if they added that to it, much like some of the other models have little icons to show you to either burnish or file the little tips. You can also work with rubber gloves or finger cots to keep fingerprints off the metal. Here's one of the filed edges that I did right on that. But you can see there's little tabs here every so often. Also, the instructions talk about bending these tabs. They don't say how far. Also up here. So I noticed in the instructions here it looks like they're bending the bottom tabs to 90 degrees, and so I think it would be more helpful if they included an icon, although it's pretty straightforward in the instructions to bend these 90 degrees on these tabs. But here in this step they show these at the top. They look like they're bent probably more like 10 degrees, not 20 degrees, but it doesn't really say. And also in the further illustrations, it's not really illustrated that those top pieces are bent. It looks like it's slightly bent, like here and here, but I put in like 45 degrees, like here in this one, bend at 45. These are kind of estimated angles, because then you turn the part around and you bend this part this way, then up, then you bend the tabs that way. Now when we flip the page, they show everything colored, what you're supposed to remove, which I think is good. But notice they're saying ×2 on the key. Here they don't actually say to insert them together. They just kind of show them side by side. I've added the 1 and 2 to it. So basically they're inserted right next to each other. So you put the two pieces identically together in parallel, then they push through the circular little cross part there and then into the spring mechanism. You do all this before you cut the band loose that's holding the spring, because you don't want that spring to come flying loose. Now see, in these other parts I've noted where that's pretty straightforward, it's 90 degrees. Then these tabs are actually folded back over on each other about 180 degrees, and you can see it in the illustration that they're bent that far. Now, one thing I'd like to make note of is that the spring they show here is not bent in the illustration quite like the spring that came with the kit. My spring has a loop on it instead of a straight bend. So you can kind of see that loop right here. Basically, the end of this bend goes over one of these tabs. So you have to orient this part here where the two with the bent over tabs are on the top, and the ones with the unbent pieces, not these two, but the bottom ones are at the bottom. And so then the eyelet or hook of the spring actually goes over this leg right here, and the inside of the spring goes into this metal cast part and fits just like it's shown. And then they show you bending the tabs, and I just say twist clockwise slightly. They just say bend the eyelets. So I'm assuming at this point they're just talking about holding it in place until the next step. Now later they'll be bending these little bitty tabs right here once they get the other pieces of the key inserted in here. Then you'll be bending these tiny little tabs, and that, I believe, helps keep it located on this part so it doesn't come out. So far that's what I have, and I just thought I'd mention some of these little notes to you if you build one of these, and I'm still excited about building it. These are my next steps, and I've already removed the fabric band that holds the spring together. But basically they show you once you've cut it, the spring pops into these little the holder, and then once you cut the band, then you can take a pair of pliers or whatever and pull the loose tab from the bandage out of the mechanism. And so my next step will be this step right here where the key is completed for the winding and operating mechanism. Thank you for watching.